Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz. This is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Wednesday, April 17th, 2024. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Wednesday, Major League Baseball. First up, we have the first of many afternoon games for the Wednesday card. This one, the San Francisco Giants and the Miami Marlins. Going to be 12:10 Eastern. Keaton Winn and A.J. Puk are your projected starters. Of course, A.J. Puk was supposed to go earlier in this series, but he was scratched late due to an illness. He's ready to go here, it looks like, on Wednesday. Don't love the matchup for him, though. You know, he pitched okay against the Yankees, but it was really about getting out of a lot of jams, and that starter's control was still pretty bad in that one. And ZRA is just below 6 on the season. The strikeout numbers kind of been all over the place. I don't have a lot of faith in him because he's facing a San Francisco lineup that's crushed lefties this year, and much better numbers for San Francisco against lefties than righties. So I think they get to him early. And Keaton Winn, while he's 0-3 and an ERA above 5 himself, I think he looked actually pretty solid in his last start against the Tampa Bay Rays. Wasn't enough for the win, but he went 5 innings, a 2-run ball on the row with 6 strikeouts. So, it was a 2-1 final score. The Giants didn't do much offensively in that one, but that was against a right-handed pitcher. Now they're facing a lefty here. I think they get Winn some run support early. I think the Giants win this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Pablo Lopez and Tyler Wells are your starters. We've mentioned that the Orioles have been a really solid late-inning team this season, especially offensively, where in the beginning of games, through the first 5 or 6 innings, they haven't been the best. The offensive numbers aren't the sharpest for Baltimore, but in the late innings where the games matter most and some of the critical moments in the games, they've really showed up. And I think this is a spot here where even though I like this Twins bullpen quite a bit, I would take the Twins in the first 5 innings rather than the full game, because I could see if it's a close game late, the Orioles finding a way to win. They've just done it so many times so far this year. And Tyler Wells is struggling right now. He's got an ERA just below 6. He's given up, I believe, 13 base hits in his last 9 1/3 innings with 7 earned runs to go with it. So the Twins, a struggling lineup. I think if they're going to find some runs early, or find some runs in this game, they're going to find them early. And Pablo Lopez, I think he'll be fine in the first and maybe second time through the order, but if the Orioles face a third time through the order in the 6th or 7th inning, that's where I worry about Pablo. And, he hasn't been the sharpest himself so far. He's got an ERA just below 5. I think he pitches well early in this game. I think the Twins have the lead at the end of the first 5. So give me the Twins in the first 5 innings on the money line. But like I said, maybe if it's a close game late, you look at those live wagers. If you're getting, nice plus money with the Orioles, it might be worth a shot. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the New York Mets. Bailey Falter and Luis Severino are your projected starters. Going into Tuesday's game for the Mets, their bullpen availability was not the best because they used a lot of their main relievers in the game on Monday and the game on Sunday. So you never want to go 3 straight days with a reliever, especially this early in the season, and especially guys like Edwin Diaz are coming off an injury. So the Mets weren't set up necessarily well in the bullpen department going into that Tuesday game. But here, they should have most of their guys, including Edwin Diaz. And, I think Luis Severino has been solid this year. We know he struggled in that first game against the Brewers, but he's bounced back ever since. The last game against the Royals, a really solid lineup. He only gave up, it was really one mistake. It was a home run. Other than that, it was just 1 run, 5 innings, 4 strikeouts, some walks. We know the control's a little bit of a concern, but he's been able to miss some bats, and he's faced some tough lineups. The Brewers, the Reds, and the Royals, all winning teams, or teams that are just hitting righties well in general. Now you're facing the Pirates, another winning record right now, but still, I think Severino's going to be good enough. And, Bailey Falter has pitched okay for the Pirates, especially in his last couple of starts, but doesn't really miss a lot of bats. He's only had 4 strikeouts his last 11 innings of work, and the Mets already do a good job at limiting strikeouts against lefties, and they have actually pretty good numbers against lefties offensively this year. So I'm going to go with the New York Mets on the money line at Citi Field in this one. Next up is the San Diego Padres taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Michael King and Freddie Peralta as the projected starters for now, but there is no official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change. Michael King, his control's just been way off this year, and it's tough to trust him in this game, even though the Padres are 4-0 when King has been on the mound this year, and that includes 2 wins over the Dodgers. He pitched against them in the Korea series, and he pitched against them last start at Dodger Stadium, but he gave up 4 home runs in that game. It's really tough to have a lot of faith in his game when you've seen him walk 7 guys back on March 31st, give up those 4 home runs and 6 total home runs in 19 1/3 innings. This is a solid Brewers lineup, and if Peralta is the starter, I think he gives the Brewers a really good chance to win almost every time he's on the mound. The Brewers are 3-0 in his first 3 starts, including an 11-1 blowout win over the Orioles in his last game, where it was 6 innings of 1-run ball and 11 strikeouts. So to me, I do think the Padres take their first loss with King on the mound in this one, and if this is a close game late, the big advantage of the bullpen goes to Milwaukee, in my opinion. So give me the Brewers on the money line. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Detroit Tigers. We see Dane Dunning and Tarek Skubal as your starters. We took the Detroit Tigers in the first game of this series. I like the matchup in terms of the starting pitching matchup, and it was a low-scoring game, 1-0 the final score. The Rangers were able to get that one, but I think Skubal gives the Tigers a chance to win this one as well. He's pitched well this season. The Rangers actually don't have the best numbers against lefties to start the year, and this is one of the better lefties in baseball, so I think Skubal goes 5-6 solid innings, and then Dane Dunning, I don't have a lot of faith in his game right now. He's given up a lot of runs, a lot of sharp contact. You see his last 2 games, 12 2/3, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs. He's given up at least 1 home run in each of his first 3 games. The walks are also starting to pile up a little bit, and I think that even though the Tigers aren't the Rays or the Astros offensively, they're good enough to get to Dunning for a few runs to win this game. Maybe take the Tigers in the first 5 innings, but I also think the Tigers have the better bullpen in this game, so I'm willing to take Detroit in the full game on the money line. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Houston Astros. Max Fried and JP France are your starters. I think eventually JP France is going to find his game, but in the words of Jay Briggs, I'm not going to catch a falling knife here and wait around and wait until it happens. JP France, we saw him give 8 earned runs and a home run in that last game against the Rangers, where he was missing inside the zone, he was missing outside the zone. He had 4 walks, a lot of sharp contact. He just wasn't a competitive option for the Astros, who scored 8 runs in that game. So if you score 8 runs, you should be able to win the ball game, especially when you're playing at home almost every night. So France really took him out of that game early. And against the Atlanta Braves, enter the Atlanta Braves. This is not an easy matchup at all. If you thought the Rangers were tough, the Braves have some of the best numbers in all of baseball against right-handed pitching. Number 1 in team OPS, number 3 in isolated power, a low strikeout rate. The walk rate's a little low as well, but I still think they get to France early. And, Max Fried, who struggled mightily in the beginning of the season, we kind of said the same thing about Fried, where, eventually he's going to find his game. We're not going to back him right now, but now he's finding his game. His last start against the Marlins, 6 1/3 innings, only 1 earned run. And even at the Diamondbacks start, where he got, he gave up like 6 runs in the first inning, he settled down nicely, and at the end of that game gave his team a chance to compete, and they ended up winning the ball game. So I think Fried goes 5-6 decent innings. It's a tough Astros lineup, especially against a lefty, but I still think the Braves are the side in this one. So give me the Braves. Maybe I lean towards the over, but give me Atlanta on the money line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Chicago White Sox. Michael Wacha and Eric Fedde are the projected starters. I can't back the White Sox in this game, and their offense just hasn't been competitive enough. When we knew the lineup was going to struggle this year, you lose Robert and you lose Yoan Moncada. You were already without Eloy Jimenez, and now we saw that the White Sox score combined 5 runs in that Red series, a 3-game series, and then they get shut out in the first game of this series. So, Michael Wacha's pitched well, as many of the Royals starting pitchers have. His last game wasn't his best. We know that. That was at New York against the Mets. 6 innings, 5 earned runs. But I think it's a much better matchup for him in this game. I think he bounces back, and I think the Royals back him up against Fedde and this weak White Sox bullpen. So give me the Kansas City Royals here. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Marcus Stroman and Kevin Gausman are your starters. Another situation where, yes, I think eventually Kevin Gausman is going to be a very solid starting pitching option in this Blue Jays rotation and, get back to being one of the better pitchers in the American League. But right now, he's just not that guy. So it's tough to take a chance and, back the Blue Jays and think he's just going to magically, get a lot better when we've seen him pitch through 3 games so far. His first game was decent in terms of the earned runs, but he only went, it was, 4 1/3 innings. The pitch count was very limited, so we didn't see a full outing. And then we saw him against these Yankees at Yankee Stadium go an inning and a third, 4 base hits, 6 total runs, 5 of those were earned, and 2 home runs with 2 walks and no strikeouts, a miserable outing. Then you have a game at home against the Rockies, who were coming off a Coors Field series. Yes, they had a day off, and we took the Rockies in that game, but it was a really, actually solid matchup for Gausman on paper. And he gives up 10 base hits and 6 earned runs in a 12-4 blowout loss, where the Blue Jays were like minus 250, minus 260 in that game. So there's no way I could trust Gausman and the Blue Jays in this spot. The Yankees are crushing righties. They already crushed Gausman, and Marcus Stroman on the other side. While his last game wasn't his best, he's still got a sub-3 ERA, 2.12 on the season. He's missing bats, earning strikeouts. He went 6 innings of shutout ball against this Blue Jays lineup. back on April 5th with 6 Ks, and the Blue Jays are struggling quite a bit against righties. I mean, Luis Gil in the first game of the series, I believe he had 7 walks given up, and the Blue Jays only scored 3 runs on him. I got to go with the Yankees in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. No official starter for LA, but we should see Jake Irvin going for Washington. Gotta say, Jake Irvin actually pitched really well in his last game. His best start of the season, in my opinion, 6 innings of 1-run ball, 5 strikeouts, a quality start. Now, it was against the Oakland A's, so we know it's one of the weaker lineups in the league, but still, really solid outing. And this Nationals bullpen has been pretty solid as well. They're actually number 6 in terms of the lowest ERA at 3.2 on the season. The expected numbers aren't too bad. And we know the Dodgers bullpen's not been great. They're in the bottom 10 in ERA at 4.46, a 4.6 FIP as well. Not great there. I think there's value with Washington in a game like this. We saw him take the first game of the series. I'm going to take him in this one, plus the 1.5 runs, and on the money line a little bit as well. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Matz and Paul Blackburn are your starters. I mean, as well as Steven Matz has pitched this season, it's tough to go against Paul Blackburn and the Oakland A's, with how well Blackburn has pitched this season, not giving up a single run yet. I mean, no unearned runs or earned runs through 19 1/3 innings, his first 3 starts of the season. Only 11 strikeouts, but Paul Blackburn is a pitch-to-contact guy. He's keeping the ball on the ground. He's doing a great job at doing so, and he's also limiting walks, only 3 walks overall this year. He has been the best pitcher in baseball so far, and the Oakland A's. When you look after the Blackburn goes 5-6 solid innings, you turn it over to one of the better bullpens in the league right now. Quietly, similar to the Nationals, it's a surprise, but the Oakland A's have a 2.59 bullpen ERA, and they're solid expected numbers to go with it. The xFIP a little bit steep, but right now, Oakland's bullpen's been one of the best in the league, and Steven Matz is a lefty. The A's, they're much better numbers offensively are against left-handed pitching, especially when it comes to the isolated power numbers, where they are actually pretty solid. And Steven Matz's last game gave him 8 base hits and 4 total runs. Only one of those was earned, but still 4 total runs in that game. I think the A's get to him for a few runs early. I like the Oakland A's in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Jordan Wicks and Brandon Pfaadt are your starters. I think there are a couple of coin flip games for the Wednesday card in Major League Baseball, games that could go either way. This one, and actually the next one we're going to talk about, are the games I have in mind as these coin flip games. Is Jordan Wicks and Brandon Pfaadt both not in great form, and we saw Wicks give up 4 earned against a struggling Mariners lineup and 4 walks to go with it in a 4-2 Cubs loss. Brandon Pfaadt in his last 11 2/3 innings, giving up 11 earned runs, 15 base hits, and 3 home runs. Not what you want to see. Now, that was against the Braves and the Cardinals, solid lineups, but it doesn't get too much easier against this Cubs lineup. So then you look at the bullpens. Diamondbacks, I think, have the pretty sizable advantage there, about a run lower ERA. The expected numbers are better as well. And I think Pfaadt honestly has the higher ceiling to his game. We saw the flashes of him being dominant in the postseason. I think eventually he's still going to be a really good option in this Diamondbacks rotation and be a guy like a Zach Gallen or a Merrill Kelly and, bolster one of the already better rotations in baseball. So I'm going to go with Arizona here. Like I said, I think it's going to be a close one, kind of a game that goes either way, but I'm going to go with the Diamondbacks on the money line. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Seattle Mariners. Again, another coin flip game, in my opinion, as Andrew Abbott and Bryce Miller get the start. This is a tough one because Bryce Miller's pitching really well this season. Andrew Abbott not too shabby himself. I would say that the Reds have the better lineup, that's for sure. Seattle offensively just has not been great, but the bullpen, I would give the advantage to Seattle. When you look at the Mariners' numbers against lefties, they aren't great, but they also have pretty low strikeout rate against lefties, where the strikeout rate against right-handed pitching is through the roof. It's above 30% as a team. It's below 23% against lefties. So, Andrew Abbott, less than 5 strikeouts per 9 so far this season. I think this is actually a decent matchup for Seattle offensively. Bryce Miller just has to be, solid in this game. This is a really tough Reds lineup. I mean, they've got, their top 10 in home runs, their top 5 in extra base hits this season. So they have a lot of power in this lineup, even with, being shorthanded without guys like TJ Friedel and, McLean so far. But I'm going to go with the Seattle Mariners here on the money line. Like I said, the game could go either way, but I'll go with Seattle. Next up, the Colorado Rockies taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Ryan Feltner and Christopher Sanchez are your starters. This Phillies lineup, but we're waiting for it to break out, and so far it just hasn't been there. And even the first game of this series, we saw a low-scoring win for Philadelphia. We see him as a big favorite in this game. I just don't think there's a lot of value in this one, so I'm just going to look at the under here. Felder's pitched well. I mean, especially his last couple of starts where, against the Rays at Coors Field, he goes 6 innings, a 1-run ball with 10 strikeouts. And then against the Blue Jays at Rogers Center, 5 innings, a 2-run ball. Now, he gave up a good amount of base runners in that game, gave up a home run, but it was a 12-4 Rockies win in the end. And I don't think their offense has that big of a day because Christopher Sanchez is pitching well. His sub-4 ERA, even better numbers at Citizens Bank Park. And when you look at the Rockies, they have actually, they have solid numbers against lefties overall this season. In terms of isolated power, they're number 6 in baseball. But when you look at those numbers against lefties on the road, they are much, much worse. The Rockies are actually near the bottom of the league in both team OPS and ISO against lefties on the road with a pretty steep 26% strikeout rate and a very low 5.5% walk rate. Now, that's a pretty small sample size, only 73 plate appearances, but it goes to show you how much Coors Field really, moves those numbers up the rankings in terms of the, team OPS and isolated power rankings in the MLB. So to me, I think we see a lower scoring game. I think the Phillies bullpen is something that's going to improve as the season continues. Look at the ERA. It's not great right now at 5.01, but the xFIP and the FIP at 3.59 and 3.63 respectively. Those tell me, there's going to be some positive regression for the Phillies pen going forward. We're already starting to see that a little bit. So give me the under here in Colorado, Philadelphia. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Reed Detmers and Zach Littell are your starters. Zach Littell has pitched so well this season. In spring training, we saw it in the beginning of the regular season. And even in the last game, something that makes him a dangerous starting pitching option is the fact that he didn't have his best stuff in that last game. He went, only a 4 1/3 innings. He had 3 walks given up, 6 base hits, but he's so effective that he only gave up 1 run in that game. He was able to get out of a lot of jams. That tells me that, Littell is just a really good option for this Rays pitching staff right now. And for a Rays team that really needs starting pitching because of the injuries and because of the bullpen being, one of the weakest so far in baseball, Littell has been a big help for this team. And there's no surprise to see him have, the Rays are 2-1 in his first 3 starts this year. But Reed Detmers has also pitched very, very well for Los Angeles. He has only given up 2 earned runs total this year, so a 1.04 ERA. He's personally 3-0. The Angels, of course, 3-0 in his games. He's missing a ton of bats. He's got 26 strikeouts in 17 1/3 innings. So we got a great pitching matchup on our hands in this one. It should be a very close and lower scoring game. At Tropicana Field especially, I'm willing to go with the under here in Los Angeles, Tampa Bay. And the final game we're going to talk about for the Wednesday card in Major League Baseball, it's the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Boston Red Sox. We're going to see Ben Lively and Tanner Houck as the projected starters. We took the over in the first game of this series, and obviously we didn't see any runs through the first 6 innings of that one. The Guardians piled them up towards the end and made it 6-0 in the final, but I'm going to go back with the over in this one. I just don't love either starting pitching option in this particular matchup. Houck's pitched well so far this year, 2.04 ERA, but 2 of those starts were on the road, and his only Fenway Park start against the Angels, 5 2/3, 12 base hits, 7 total runs, 4 of those were earned, and a home run in that game. Now you're facing a Guardians team that does a great job at limiting strikeouts, so for a strikeout-dependent starter, that's pretty worrisome, and you're pitching at Fenway Park where we just saw you give up 12 base hits. I just don't trust Houck, but also Ben Lively making his regular season and Guardians debut. Now one of my favorite starting pitching options to back from last year. He had an ERA above 5. Doesn't miss a lot of bats himself. He wasn't amazing in that rehab outing, and I think that he could struggle at Fenway Park, especially, hitter-friendly ballpark. The Red Sox lineup's been hit or miss this season. The injuries have played a role in that, but I think we see both teams get on the scoreboard early and often. The Guardians are able to rally late in games. We saw them in the first game of the series, find 6 runs in the late innings. So to me, I think the over is worth a play in this one. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.